The message came on a Tuesday morning. John Carter was drinking his coffee when his phone buzzed. He nearly spilled the hot liquid when he read the text. "Come to headquarters immediately. First contact confirmed." John's hands shook as he drove to the United Nations Space Agency building. After years working as Earth's senior diplomat for possible alien contact, the moment had finally arrived. The large meeting room was filled with important people when John walked in. Military officers, scientists, and government officials all talked in excited whispers. Susan Alvarez, the UN Secretary General, waved him over. "They call themselves the Voraxians," Susan said. "Their ship entered our solar system 3 hours ago. They're asking to meet with Earth's leaders." On the large screen at the front of the room, John saw the alien ship. It was beautiful, sleek, and silver, with glowing blue lights along its hull. It made Earth's best spacecraft look like toys. "Have they communicated beyond their name?" John asked. "Yes, they have some kind of translation system. They say they come in peace, to welcome us to the galactic community." 3 days later, John stood on the landing pad at Kennedy Space Center as the Voraxian shuttle descended from the sky. News cameras broadcast the moment to billions of people around the world. The shuttle was small but elegant, making almost no sound as it landed. When the door opened, John held his breath. Ambassador Krell stepped out, followed by 4 other Voraxians. They walked on 2 legs like humans but were taller and thinner. Their skin was pale blue, and they had large, dark eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. They wore what looked like armor, though it was so lightweight it moved like fabric. John stepped forward. "On behalf of humanity, I welcome you to Earth." Ambassador Krell tilted his head. When he spoke, his mouth didn't match the words John heard, suggesting some kind of translation device. "We are pleased to make contact with your species. The Voraxian Imperium wishes to establish friendly relations." The first meetings went well on the surface. The Voraxians were willing to answer questions about space travel and the galaxy. They spoke of other alien species and great civilizations among the stars. But John noticed something troubling. A certain tone when the aliens spoke to humans. At the formal reception that evening, John overheard Ambassador Krell speaking to another Voraxian while looking at a display of human technology achievements. "Such primitive attempts," Krell said with a sound that resembled laughter. "They are just now discovering principles our children learn in their first education cycle." John frowned but said nothing. Later, when Susan Alvarez presented Krell with a gift, a beautiful crystal sculpture representing peace between worlds, the alien seemed almost bored. "A kind gesture," Krell said, handing the gift to an assistant without really looking at it. "Your species seems quite focused on symbolic objects." As the night went on, the Voraxians became less careful with their words. After drinking something from their own containers, they spoke more freely. "Soft creatures," one Voraxian said to another, not realizing John was within earshot. "They have never known true conflict. Look how they smile and celebrate, thinking the galaxy is a friendly place." John watched Ambassador Krell closely. The alien's eyes moved across the room, studying the humans with an expression that reminded John of a scientist observing lab specimens, or a predator sizing up prey. When Krell caught John watching him, the alien smiled. At least, his mouth formed what might be a smile. "Your world is very interesting, John Carter. So much untapped potential. The Voraxian Imperium will be most pleased to help guide your development." Something in Krell's tone made the hair on John's neck stand up. But he smiled back and raised his glass. "We look forward to learning from each other, Ambassador." Krell's dark eyes showed no emotion. "Indeed, there is much your species has to learn." Later that night, John sat alone in his office, writing his report. Despite the exciting day, he couldn't shake a feeling of unease. The Voraxians had arrived with advanced technology and smiling faces, but John had spent his career reading between the lines of diplomatic talk. And what he read in the Voraxians' words and actions felt a lot like contempt. A month after the Varaxians' arrival, they established an embassy in Geneva. They called it a cultural exchange center, but Lieutenant Olivia Mason had her doubts. As military attaché to the diplomatic team, it was her job to watch for threats. And something about the aliens bothered her. They're asking for everything but giving nothing, she told John Carter as they walked the embassy grounds. They want access to our mines, our factories, our research. But when we ask about their technology, they change the subject. John nodded. Susan is starting to notice too. Yesterday she asked about medical technology, and Ambassador Krell said humans weren't developmentally ready for such advancements. The Varaxian embassy was a strange building. It looked normal from the outside, but inside it was filled with technology that seemed magical to human eyes. Doors that opened before you touched them, lights that followed you around, and strange floating screens. I've been tracking their ships, Olivia said quietly. There are more arriving every week. 15 in orbit now. Does that sound like a diplomatic mission to you? Before John could answer, a Varaxian appeared on the path. It was Krell's assistant, Mivar. He smiled his strange smile. Lieutenant Mason. Mr. Carter. Ambassador Krell would be pleased if you joined the morning meeting. The meeting room was large, with a round table. Susan Alvarez was already there, along with representatives from China, Russia, and the European Union. Ambassador Krell stood at the head of the table, tall and thin. We wish to discuss our mining operations on Mars, Krell said once everyone was seated. Mining operations. Susan raised her eyebrows. We haven't agreed to any mining. Krell made the sound that humans had learned was Varaxian laughter. A simple courtesy notification. The Varaxian ships are already on their way. Mars has resources valuable to us. Mars is under Earth's jurisdiction, the Chinese representative said sharply. You can't just take what you want. Krell's large eyes blinked slowly. Your species has barely visited Mars. You have no permanent settlements there. By galactic law, that means the resources are available to those who can use them. What galactic law? Olivia asked, unable to stay quiet. You've never shown us any legal codes or introduced us to other species who could verify these claims. The room went quiet. Krell turned to look at Olivia, and for a moment, his friendly mask slipped. There was something cold in his eyes. Lieutenant Mason, isn't it? The military observer. He said the word military, as if it was a joke. Your species still fights with projectile weapons and combustion engines. You understand nothing of true warfare. We understand plenty, Olivia replied evenly. And we've noticed your warships gathering in our orbit. Krell smiled. Not warships. Research vessels. Exploration craft. The Varaxian Imperium is peaceful. Then you won't mind if our ships inspect these peaceful vessels? Susan asked. Your ships. Again, that laughing sound. Your little vehicles can barely reach orbit without falling apart. No, that won't be necessary. After the meeting, a press conference was held. Reporters from around the world had questions. A journalist from BBC stood up. Ambassador, many scientists are concerned about the Varaxian ship's effects on our satellite networks. Several communication systems have failed since your arrival. Krell waved a long-fingered hand dismissively. Simple technical conflicts. Your primitive systems are easily confused. A reporter from Al Jazeera spoke next. There are reports of Varaxians taking soil and water samples without permission from private property. Can you explain this? We're scientists, Krell replied with that same condescending tone. We study developing worlds. It's what we do. From the back of the room, an American reporter called out, Are you planning to invade Earth? The room went silent. Krell and the other Varaxians looked at each other and then broke into their strange laughter. Invade, Krell said, still making that laughing sound. Why would we invade? Your world has resources, yes, but your military would be no challenge at all. There would be no glory in such a conquest. It would be like, he searched for the right words, like hunting baby animals. Too easy to be sporting. John Carter felt a chill run down his spine as the Varaxians continued to laugh. The aliens didn't see humans as equals or even as worthy opponents. They saw humans as a joke. The attack came without warning. 3 months after first contact, in the early morning hours, the Varaxian ships above Earth changed position. No one noticed until it was too late. The lunar colony was hit first. 400 people lived there, scientists and engineers mostly. The Varaxian ships fired energy weapons that cut through the dome structures like they were made of paper. Only a few emergency messages made it to Earth before communications went silent. At the same moment, in cities around the world, the Varaxian diplomats moved with perfect coordination. They seized government buildings, broadcast stations, and military command centers. Their weapons easily overwhelmed human security forces. John Carter was woken by the sound of alarms. He looked out his window and saw smoke rising from the United Nations building. His phone rang. It was Susan Alvarez. "John, the Varaxians are attacking. They've taken the UN headquarters. I barely got out." There. The call cut off. John turned on the TV. On every channel, Ambassador Krell's face appeared. "People of Earth," Krell said, without his usual false smile, "your planet is now under Varaxian protection. Your resources belong to the Galactic Imperium. Resistance would be not only futile but amusing." John grabbed his emergency bag and car keys. As he drove toward the backup government facility outside the city, he passed scenes of chaos. Varaxian soldiers moved through the streets. They weren't killing people, just herding them like cattle. Some humans tried to fight back with whatever they had. The aliens easily knocked them aside. At a military base near the coast, Captain Frank Delgado received orders to launch Earth's small fleet of space defense ships. 6 vessels, the pride of human engineering, rose to meet the Varaxian armada. Frank watched on his screen as his ships fired their best weapons at the alien vessels. The missiles and energy beams seemed to do nothing. Then the Varaxians fired back. 2 human ships exploded immediately. The others were disabled within minutes. "Target their engines," Frank ordered desperately. "Find a weak spot." "There's no weak spot, sir," his weapons officer replied, voice shaking. "Their shields absorb everything we throw at them." The Varaxians opened a communication channel. A blue face appeared on Frank's screen. "Your resistance is pointless," the alien said, "but entertaining. We will allow your remaining ships to return to Earth. Tell your leaders that fighting us is useless." Frank's hands tightened into fists. "We won't surrender our planet." The Varaxian made that now familiar laughing sound. "You already have. You just don't know it yet." Within 48 hours, most of Earth's governments had fallen. The Varaxians set up control centers in major cities, but left most areas with minimal occupation forces. They didn't seem worried about human resistance. Their focus was on resources. They immediately began setting up mining operations and taking over factories. In a hidden bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, the highest-ranking surviving military and government officials of several nations gathered. Susan Alvarez, her face bruised from escaping the UN attack, looked around the room. "What are our options?" she asked. General Pete Miller of the U.S. Army shook his head. "Militarily, almost none. They control orbit. Their weapons outmatch ours in every way. We've lost 90% of our aircraft trying to fight them." "So we surrender?" the British Prime Minister asked. "No," John Carter said firmly. "They expect us to give up. Notice how few troops they've actually deployed. They think we're not a threat." "We're not," someone muttered. "Not yet," John agreed. "But they've made a mistake. They think they know humans because they've studied us. But they don't understand what happens when humans are pushed to the edge." "What happens?" Susan asked. John's face hardened. "We change. We adapt. We've spent our entire history fighting. Each other, nature, disease, disaster. War is nothing new to us. But we can't win, General Miller said. Not conventionally, John agreed. But the Varaxians have shown us something important. They don't just underestimate our technology, they underestimate our will. And that's where we'll surprise them. Outside the bunker, Varaxian ships flew overhead, scanning for human activity. They weren't worried about finding the human leaders. After all, what could a defeated species possibly do against the mighty Varaxian Imperium? They were about to find out. 2 weeks passed. The Varaxians believed they had won. They set up mining camps and factories across Earth. They took what they wanted and ignored human suffering. Most people stayed in their homes, afraid to go outside. The aliens laughed at how easily humans had given up. They were wrong. In the small town of Boulder, Colorado, Alan Bishop watched the aliens through binoculars. Once a Special Forces soldier, Alan now led 30 men and women who refused to surrender. They hid in the mountains and watched the Varaxian mining operation in the valley below. They only have 10 guards, Alan told his group. They don't expect us to fight back. That night, Alan's team moved silently toward the alien camp. The Varaxian guards stood tall and confident, their weapons held loosely. They didn't look into the shadows. They didn't expect danger. The first guard died silently, a knife in his throat. The second turned at the sound, but fell to a well-aimed shot. By the time the aliens realized they were under attack, it was too late. Take their weapons, Alan shouted as his team stormed the camp. The fight lasted less than 5 minutes. All 10 Varaxian guards lay dead, and the human workers they had forced to operate the mining equipment looked up in shock. "We're here to free you," Alan told the workers, "and we need your help." That same night, similar attacks happened around the world. In Russia, a former army captain led farmers against a Varaxian food collection center. In Brazil, miners attacked an alien research station. In Egypt, a team of archaeologists and tour guides destroyed a Varaxian communications tower. None of these groups knew about the others. They acted on their own, driven by the same human instinct to fight back. At Varaxian headquarters in what used to be New York City, Ambassador Krell received the reports with disbelief. "Impossible," he said. "The humans surrendered. Their militaries are destroyed." "These aren't military attacks," his assistant explained. "These are civilians, regular humans with improvised weapons." Krell's large eyes blinked slowly. Civilians? Fighting without their government's orders. This concept seemed strange to him. "And they captured our weapons." "Yes. The attack in Colorado was most concerning. The humans there have taken over the mining facility and are studying our technology." In a hidden laboratory beneath Denver, Dr. Patricia Winters carefully examined the Varaxian weapon. Once a weapons researcher for the military, she now worked for the Resistance. Around her, other scientists watched eagerly. "Their energy weapons operate on principles we theorized but couldn't build," she explained. "But now that we have working examples." She connected a wire from the alien gun to a human power source. The weapon hummed to life. "We can reverse engineer them. We can learn to build our own." Word spread through hidden human networks. People who had been hiding in fear began to organize. Farmers hid resistance fighters. Engineers built jammers to block Varaxian communications. Doctors treated the wounded in secret hospitals. The Varaxians responded with brutality. When they couldn't find the resistance fighters, they punished nearby towns. They expected this to make humans surrender. Instead, it made more people join the fight. 3 months into the occupation, Ambassador Krell sent an urgent message to the Varaxian homeworld. "The human response is unusual," he reported. "When we destroy their homes, they don't beg for mercy. They become more determined. When we kill their leaders, new ones appear. They adapt to our tactics faster than expected." He paused, reluctant to admit the truth. "These humans react differently to defeat than any species we've encountered. They don't surrender when victory is impossible. They become more dangerous." The reply from his superiors was short. Crush them completely. Krell stared at the message. For the first time, he felt something new when thinking about humans. Not amusement, not contempt, worry. In the Rocky Mountain bunker, John Carter looked at the growing map of resistance cells. Small lights showed human-controlled areas scattered across the globe. The Varaxians are sending more troops, General Miller reported. They're finally taking us seriously. John nodded. Good. That means we're hurting them. But we're still outmatched, Susan Alvarez pointed out. We need better weapons, better organization. We're working on both, John said. Dr. Winters has made breakthroughs with alien technology, and our separate resistance groups are now coordinating their attacks. He looked at the map again, at all those small lights of human defiance glowing in the darkness of alien occupation. The Varaxians still think this is just an annoyance. They don't understand yet what they've awakened. 6 months into the occupation, Earth had changed. Cities that once shone with lights now stayed dark at night to hide from Varaxian patrols. Factories that once made cars and phones now secretly produced weapons. People who had been office workers and teachers became soldiers and spies. General Maria Rodriguez stood in the underground command center that had once been a shopping mall. Maps covered the walls, and radio operators worked at makeshift stations. As the highest-ranking military officer to survive the initial attack, Maria now led the United Human Forces. The Varaxians are moving troops to these areas, she said, pointing to red marks on the map. They're finally starting to understand we're a real threat. Around the table stood leaders from different countries, now working together. Old enemies had become allies against the alien invaders. Dr. Winters has news, John Carter said, gesturing to the scientist who entered the room. Patricia Winters looked tired but excited. She placed a weapon on the table. It looked like a mix of human and Varaxian technology. It works, she said simply. We've combined their energy systems with our design improvements. This rifle can penetrate Varaxian armor. The leaders leaned forward, hope in their eyes. How many can you make? Maria asked. With the factories we control, thousands within a month. We've sent the plans to resistance groups across the globe. For the first time since the invasion, Maria smiled. Then it's time for Phase 2. Far from the command center, in a Varaxian prison camp, resistance fighter Eric Powell sat in a cold cell. His body hurt from torture, but his eyes remained defiant. The door opened, and Commander Zex entered. Tall even for a Varaxian, Zex was known for his cruelty. You will tell me where your leaders are hiding, Zex said, his translator making his voice sound flat and mechanical. Eric looked up and did something that confused the alien. He laughed. You still don't get it, do you? Eric said through cracked lips. You think if you hurt us enough, we'll give up. That's because you've never really fought for survival. Zex tilted his head. We have conquered 12 species. We understand warfare. No, Eric shook his head. You understand dominance. But humans, we've lived our entire existence fighting. Sometimes each other, sometimes nature, sometimes ourselves. You just gave us a common enemy. Zex stepped closer, his large eyes studying Eric like he was an interesting insect. You cannot win. Our technology is centuries ahead of yours. Technology isn't everything, Eric said. We adapt, we improvise, and we never, ever give up. Brave words from a prisoner, Zex said. Eric smiled, showing bloody teeth. I'm not just a prisoner. I'm a distraction. At that moment, explosions rocked the building. The lights went out. In the darkness, Eric moved with practiced speed, wrapping his chains around Zex's neck. This is for Earth, he whispered as both human and alien were engulfed in the explosion that destroyed the command center. Across the globe, humans launched coordinated attacks against Varaxian strongholds. In Chicago, Colonel Samantha Wright led a force of 500 fighters through sewers and subway tunnels, emerging inside the alien security perimeter. In Shanghai, resistance fighters used modified Varaxian weapons to shoot down an alien transport ship. In London, hackers broke into Varaxian communication systems, spreading confusion among enemy forces. The aliens fought back with advanced weapons and superior technology. But in the narrow streets of human cities, in the thick forests and mountain passes, technology wasn't always an advantage. The Varaxians found themselves ambushed by enemies who knew the terrain and were willing to die for their cause. In New York, Ambassador Krell watched video feeds of the fighting with growing concern. "They don't fight like a civilized species," he reported to the Imperium. "They fight like they have nothing to lose." An elder Varaxian's face appeared on the screen. "They are still primitives. Crush them." "We're trying," Krell said, his confidence wavering. "But they keep changing tactics. When we adapt to one approach, they try another. And they're starting to use our own technology against us." He hesitated before adding, "And their soldiers, they don't retreat when ordered. They keep fighting even when wounded. Some even sacrifice themselves deliberately to destroy our forces." The elder's large eyes narrowed. "You sound afraid, Ambassador." Krell straightened his tall frame. "Not afraid, but concerned. These humans are unpredictable." After the transmission ended, Krell stood at the window of his fortified headquarters. Outside, smoke rose from parts of the city where fighting continued. For the first time, he wondered if the Varaxian Imperium had made a mistake in attacking Earth. 1 year after the invasion, humanity launched Operation Thunderstrike. This was not a small resistance attack, but a global offensive against Varaxian strongholds in every major city. Colonel Samantha Wright led the battle in Chicago. Once a beautiful city on a lake, Chicago was now a maze of broken buildings and burned streets. The Varaxians had turned the downtown area into their regional headquarters. "They expect us to attack from the ground," Samantha told her troops as they gathered in an abandoned subway station. "So we'll come from above and below." 500 human fighters moved through the underground tunnels while others climbed to the tops of buildings surrounding the alien base. They carried the new hybrid weapons, human-made guns powered by stolen Varaxian energy cells. The aliens had grown more cautious over the months of fighting, but they still underestimated human creativity. When Samantha gave the signal, her forces didn't just attack with guns. They broke open the city's water mains, flooding the lower levels of Varaxian buildings. They cut power lines and redirected the electricity into metal barriers the aliens had built. They used the city itself as a weapon. In his command center in New York, Ambassador Krell received urgent messages from across the globe. London under heavy attack. Sydney fallen to human forces. Moscow's Varaxian command center destroyed. Beijing surrounded by resistance fighters. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "We destroyed their armies. Their weapons were primitive." "They adapted," his military advisor said simply. "They studied our technology and improved upon it. They learned our tactics and found ways around them." Krell watched the video feed from Chicago with growing horror. Human soldiers fought with a ferocity that shocked even veteran Varaxian warriors. They kept advancing despite injuries that should have stopped them. When their weapons ran out of power, they used knives and improvised explosives. Most disturbing of all was their use of psychological warfare. The humans had learned that Varaxians had sensitive hearing, so they broadcast high-pitched sounds that disoriented the alien soldiers. They painted their faces with frightening patterns and attacked at night, using the Varaxians' poor night vision against them. They left messages in Varaxian language on the bodies of dead alien soldiers. "We will never stop." "They don't fight like a civilized species," Krell reported to the Imperium. "They fight like they have nothing to lose." The response from his superiors was immediate. "Withdraw from major cities. Consolidate forces. The Imperium is sending reinforcements." For the first time in the war, the Varaxians were retreating. In the ruins of Chicago, Samantha stood on her rooftop, watching alien ships fly away from the city center. Her face was dirty and blood ran from a cut on her arm, but her eyes were clear and determined. "They're running," said her second-in-command. "Not running," Samantha corrected. "Regrouping." This fight isn't over yet. She used her radio to contact the command center. Chicago is secured. Casualties higher than expected but acceptable. The Varaxians are pulling back to their secondary positions outside the city. General Rodriguez's voice came through with static. Well done, Colonel. The same is happening worldwide. They're abandoning the cities and moving to more defensible positions. What's our next move? Samantha asked. Hold the cities. Build our strength. The real battle is just beginning. In his private quarters, Ambassador Krell reviewed intercepted human communications. One message particularly disturbed him. It was from John Carter to resistance leaders worldwide. The Varaxians are retreating because they finally understand what they're facing. They came to Earth expecting an easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, they found a civilization forged through millennia of conflict. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and our own destructive tendencies. We will survive this too. The Varaxians have technology, but we have something stronger, the absolute refusal to be conquered. Krell's hands trembled slightly as he closed the message. For the first time since the invasion began, he felt something he never expected to feel toward humans. Fear. Outside his window, the sun set over New York Harbor. In the growing darkness, he could see small lights appearing throughout the city, not the blue glow of Varaxian technology, but the warm yellow of human fires. The city that should have been conquered and silent was coming back to life. The Varaxians were losing their grip on Earth, one city at a time. 18 months after the invasion began, humanity was ready for the next step. They had taken back their cities. They had built factories deep underground where they made new weapons by combining human ingenuity with stolen alien technology. Now it was time to take the fight beyond Earth. Commander Jack Reeves stood on the bridge of the Freedom, a ship unlike any humans had built before. It looked like a mix of Earth and Varaxian design, sleeker than old human ships but more rugged than alien vessels. All systems ready, sir, reported his second-in-command. The other 5 ships are in position. Jack nodded. 6 ships. That was all humanity had managed to build. Against them, the Varaxians had dozens of warships in orbit and a major base on Mars. The odds were terrible. Jack smiled. Humans were used to terrible odds. Send the message to all ships, he ordered. Operation Starfire begins now. The small fleet of human ships rose from hidden bases around the world. They looked tiny compared to the massive Varaxian vessels orbiting Earth, but they carried a secret weapon: the human will to win at any cost. On the Varaxian command ship, alarms sounded as human vessels approached. They've built ships, the Varaxian commander said in disbelief. Primitive copies of our technology. Destroy them immediately. The alien guns fired, but the human ships moved in unexpected ways, dodging the energy beams with maneuvers no Varaxian would attempt. These weren't computer-guided evasions, but human pilots pushing their ships beyond safe limits. The Freedom took a direct hit but kept flying. Jack was thrown against his seat as the ship shook violently. Damage report, he shouted. Engine 3 is down. Hull breach on deck 2. Sealed off. Press the attack, Jack ordered. All ships, follow me to the main target. The human fleet headed straight for the largest Varaxian ship. It seemed suicidal. The alien vessel was 5 times their size with weapons that could destroy them instantly. But the Varaxians had learned to fear human unpredictability. They broke formation, trying to escape what they thought must be some kind of suicide attack. They're running, someone said with amazement. Not for long, Jack replied. Deploy the pulse bombs. Each human ship released small objects that floated toward the Varaxian vessels. The aliens ignored these, focusing on the human ships instead. That was their mistake. The pulse bombs attached to the hulls of 3 Varaxian ships and detonated, not with explosions, but with electromagnetic pulses that shut down their systems. For the first time, Varaxian ships drifted helplessly in space, while human vessels circled them like wolves around wounded prey. In his headquarters on Earth, Ambassador Krell received the news with shock. Not only were humans fighting in space, but they were winning. He immediately sent a message to the Varaxian homeworld. The situation has become critical. Humans have developed space combat capabilities beyond what we thought possible. Request immediate reinforcements. The reply came quickly. Hold position. The Grand Fleet is being prepared. In the meantime, negotiate if possible. Krell wrote a message to General Rodriguez, offering to leave Earth in exchange for certain concessions. The human response was not what he expected. "We're no longer interested in making you leave Earth," Rodriguez wrote back. "We're interested in making sure you never threaten anyone again." Krell stared at the message in disbelief. The humans weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to win completely. In space, the battle continued. 2 human ships were destroyed, but they took 4 Varaxian vessels with them. The Freedom, damaged but still flying, led the remaining ships toward Mars, where the aliens had built their main base in the solar system. "They won't expect us to attack Mars," Jack told his crew. "They think we're just trying to defend Earth." "We're down to 4 ships," his second-in-command reminded him. "The Mars base has heavy defenses." Jack nodded. "True, but they've never faced humans who have nothing to lose and everything to gain." As they approached the Red Planet, they received a message from Earth. Patricia Winters had finished her greatest project, a weapon that combined Varaxian energy technology with human nuclear physics. One bomb could destroy the entire Mars base. The mission had changed. Now they just needed to deliver the bomb. "One ship could do it," Jack said quietly. "One ship on a direct course could get close enough." His officers looked at him with understanding. This was how humans fought, with determination and sacrifice when necessary. "I'll take the Freedom in," Jack decided. "The rest of you deliver the weapon and get back to Earth." On the view screen, Mars grew larger. The Varaxian base sprawled across the planet's surface, alien and threatening, but not for much longer. Jack opened a channel to all human ships and to Earth. "This is Commander Reeves. Remember what we're fighting for. Remember what humanity can do when we stand together." The Freedom turned toward Mars, engines burning brightly against the darkness of space. 2 years after first contact, the Varaxian Imperium sent their Grand Fleet to Earth. 500 warships, the pride of the alien empire, emerged from faster-than-light travel near Jupiter. They had come to crush the human rebellion once and for all. Admiral Lisa Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance, Earth's newest and largest warship. Around her, officers worked at their stations, monitoring the approaching alien armada. 2 years ago, Lisa had been a Navy captain with no space experience. Now she commanded humanity's united fleet. "They're here," her second-in-command said quietly. Lisa nodded. "Right on schedule." The Varaxians expected to find Earth as they had left it, a primitive planet with minimal defenses. What they found instead shocked them. Earth was surrounded by a network of defense platforms built with modified Varaxian technology. Dozens of human warships moved in precise formation. The planet itself was different too. Its cities now protected by energy shields, its surface dotted with weapon installations. On the Varaxian command ship, Grand Admiral Vorkst studied the human defenses with disbelief. "Impossible," he said. "They couldn't have built all this in just 2 years." But humans had done exactly that. Working together with a common purpose, the people of Earth had achieved what the Varaxians thought would take decades. Factories ran day and night. Scientists worked without rest. Every person contributed to the war effort. "Send the ultimatum," Vorkst ordered. "Surrender or be destroyed." The message reached the Defiance. Lisa read it and smiled. "No response needed," she told her communications officer. "Actions speak louder than words." She pressed a button on her command chair. "All ships, execute Battle Plan Omega." The human fleet split into 3 groups and advanced toward the Varaxian armada. It seemed suicidal. The aliens still had far more ships with more advanced weapons. But humans weren't fighting a conventional space battle. As the fleets engaged, hundreds of small objects launched from Earth. The Varaxians ignored them, focusing on the larger human ships. That was their mistake. These small objects were autonomous fighting drones, built using stolen Varaxian AI, combined with human programming. They targeted the alien ship's weakest points with surgical precision. The battle raged for hours. Human ships took heavy damage, but refused to retreat. When a ship was too damaged to continue fighting, the crew would set it on a collision course with the largest nearby Varaxian vessel before escaping in pods. The aliens had never seen such tactics. They expected enemies to try to preserve their ships at all costs. They didn't understand that humans valued the mission above the equipment. On his flagship, Grand Admiral Vorks watched in growing horror as his fleet's advantage slipped away. A third of his ships were destroyed or disabled. The humans kept coming, kept fighting with a determination that bordered on madness. "They fight as if they don't fear death," he said to his officers. "It's not that they don't fear it," his advisor replied. "They simply accept it as a price they're willing to pay." After 12 hours of battle, the unthinkable happened. Grand Admiral Vorks ordered his remaining ships to retreat to a safe distance. Then he sent a message to Earth: "We request ceasefire and negotiations." In the United Nations building in New York, rebuilt after the war, Ambassador Krell sat across from John Carter. 2 years earlier, they had met as representatives of unequal powers, the mighty Varaxian Imperium and the primitive humans. Now they met as equals. "The Imperium offers unconditional peace," Krell said, his once proud voice humble. "We will leave your solar system and never return." "Not good enough," Susan Alvarez replied. Now President of the United Earth Government, she spoke for all humanity. "We require guarantees that no other peaceful species will suffer as we have." The peace treaty that followed changed the galaxy. Earth would not just be left alone. It would join the galactic community as a full member, with the right to protect other developing worlds from Varaxian expansion. As Krell prepared to leave Earth for the last time, John Carter walked with him to his ship. "We did not understand what humans truly are," Krell admitted. "You appeared peaceful, divided, weak. We did not realize that war transforms you into something else entirely." John nodded. "Peace is our natural state and our preference. But we survived as a species because when war comes, we adapt, we unite, and we never, ever give up. Remember that before you laugh at another primitive species." As the Varaxian ship rose into the sky, John looked up at the stars. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged stronger than before. United by adversity, tempered by war, they were ready to take their place among the stars. Not as conquerors, but as protectors. Not ruled by fear, but guided by hope. The aliens had laughed at humans once. No one in the galaxy was laughing now.